The sudden ring of the phone shattered the stillness of the little Edgewood apartment overlooking the tranquil seaside town. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Hawk Reynolds frowned, silencing the call at his desk when the screen showed private number. He sighed and laid the phone back down, streetlights outside the window casting shifting shadows across his stern face. Beside him, 8-year-old Luke, with bright brown hair and wide, round eyes, slept soundly under his warm blanket. It had been 6 years since Hawk adopted Luke from an orphanage after a failed mission, and every night he checked on his son 3 times to ensure he was truly asleep. Tonight was the start of Dr. Amelia Hart's late shift in the pediatric emergency department at St. Mary's Hospital, over 10 minutes away by car. She'd transferred here from the big city to escape burnout and be closer to family, seeking a fresh start. As a child she'd watched her mother, the hospital's top surgeon, live under crushing stress, and vowed to herself to be a source of comfort for her patients, strong but never losing her gentleness. In the bedroom, Hawk watched Luke's peaceful breathing and remembered those first days after bringing him home. The boy had been feverish and trembling. Only when Hawk carried him to the old military hospital and explained he wasn't a relative did the chief physician insist on discharging him. Left with no choice, Hawk taught himself to care for Luke, studying medical texts, persuading the hospital to keep the boy until his fever broke. The first time Luke looked at him, confused but clear-eyed, he'd whispered, "Papa," and Hawk knew he had to adopt him, despite keeping secret his true identity. An undercover military intelligence officer gathering anti-terror intel. Luke was everything to him. His watch read 11:45 p.m. when the bedroom door creaked open. Luke, thrashing in the grip of a nightmare, sat up. Hawk was at his side in an instant, his hand pressing to Luke's forehead. His temperature was off. The boy murmured a name and convulsed slightly. Hawk's heart clenched. Scooping him into his arms, he carried him into the bathroom, gently wiping Luke's face while murmuring, "Luke. Stay with me, son. Papa's here." After a few tense minutes, Luke calmed, though his eyes were still red-rimmed. Hawk wrapped him in a light blanket on the sofa. Luke whispered, "Papa. I'm so tired." Hawk stroked his hair, voice firm yet full of concern, "Rest now. Tomorrow I'll take you back to the hospital for a checkup. You'll be fine." In that moment, Hawk felt his defenses crack. He'd spent years suppressing emotion, but the warmth swelling in his chest soothed long-buried ache. Just days ago, Hawk had uncovered an illicit arms trafficking cell planning a deal on the coastal highway. Posing as a shadowy businessman, he gathered evidence and reported it up the chain. 12 years in uniform had trained him to react calmly, observe meticulously, and guard secrets fiercely, but it also forced him to leave Luke behind for his own safety. In the pouring rain that day, Hawk had swung by St. Mary's for a preliminary report. Too busy meeting a confidential source to enter the ER himself, he'd texted a clerk to look into pediatric emergency cases. Dr. Amelia Hart had taken Luke's case, a minor trauma with early signs of infection, and stayed awake all night monitoring his vitals, heart rate, blood pressure, wound site. Only when she saw stable results did she head home. At the hospital, lights still burned, stretchers wheeled in, nurses rushing to triage. In pediatric resuscitation, Amelia reprimed an 4-bag, checking the bruise on Luke's thigh, then exhaled softly. She recalled her childhood, nights watching her mother fight fatigue on call, and how she'd promised herself never to repeat that shadow. So with every patient, she poured her heart into saving lives. Her eyes paused on a small photo atop the med cabinet, her graduation day, mother and daughter beaming in white coats. She smiled, packed away her instruments, and prepared to head home, only to be summoned back for a trauma code, a woman with a chest stab wound. Squaring her shoulders, she steeled herself and rushed back, spending the rest of the night at the operating table before finally video calling home. She recalled Luke's worried face when he saw her that morning, a single moment of peace in a storm. Morning came just as Amelia ended her shift. She leaned against the empty ambulance bay door, closed her eyes, and inhaled deeply. Another typical day, 3 emergencies, 1 life saved, but an ache at her core. She unlocked her phone, hesitated, then texted, "Hello Reynolds family, I'm Amelia Hart, Luke's physician last night. Is he feeling better?" Seconds later she saw the read receipt and then a reply, "Thanks, he's doing fine. Papa will be in touch." Amelia's eyes brightened. A short note like that gave her fresh strength. Back at the Edgewood apartment, Hawk prepared breakfast. He reread her message and felt the tension in his features soften. A doctor who'd stayed all night to care for his son, though they shared no bond beyond patient and physician, was something precious. He set down a forkful of scrambled eggs as Luke stirred awake, eyes clear again. "Papa, I'm hungry," Luke yawned. Hawk smiled. "I know." He lifted the plate and cuddled Luke in his lap, feeding him breakfast like an ideal father. Hawk had never expected a fearless emergency doctor like Amelia Hart to simply send a check-in text, yet it both surprised and humbled him. A new connection, flickering hope to thaw his frozen heart. Soft morning light poured through the curtains as Hawk walked Luke to elementary school. The boy chattered excitedly about dreaming he soared over the sea. Hawk listened in silence, hearing his own heartbeat quicken. A few steps behind, a white-coated figure appeared at the school gate, Dr. Amelia Hart, off duty and dropping by. She waved. Hawk's eyes widened. 2 people from different worlds, a battle-hardened warrior and a healing angel, had crossed paths, opening a new chapter in fate. That afternoon, Hawk could still taste the thrill of seeing Amelia wave goodbye. Golden light filtered through leaves, briefly banishing his worries. After tucking Luke into class, he sat on a nearby bench, dialed St. Mary's, and braced as it rang. "Hello, this is Lieutenant Colonel Reynolds. I'd like Luke Reynolds's treatment records from last night," he said, his voice calm. A nurse's gentle tone replied, "His wound sealed and infection cleared. Just observe for 48 hours and follow up in 2 days." Hawk took notes, hung up, and felt a weight lift. But he yearned to thank the woman who'd saved his son in person. He found her cafe address in his correspondence, a cozy seaside spot called Lighthouse Brew. That breezy autumn afternoon, he brought Luke along. "You'll have your almond milk," he told his son, who grinned. "I love Dr. Hart." He settled Luke into an armchair and stepped outside, briefcase in hand. The cafe looked out over the surf, the scent of roasted beans mingling with salt air. Amelia sat in the corner, her coat draped over the chair back, hair pulled into a practical knot, tired but eyes still bright. When Hawk approached, she half frowned, startled. His covert identity was known only within military channels. Then his sincere gaze disarmed her, and she waved, "Hello, I'm Amelia Hart." She rose, extending her hand. "I'm Harrison Reynolds. Thank you for looking after Luke," he replied, his low baritone easing the distance between them. Amelia smiled, led him inside. "Black coffee or latte?" "Americano, please," he said, settling. "And, just a coffee?" she teased, glancing at Luke. "He'll have almond milk," Hawk said. She signaled the barista, then asked softly, "Were you just reviewing his case file? Or?" Hawk paused, aware he risked prying. "I wanted to know more about you," Amelia confessed lightly. "I'm just an ER doctor, no grand story. I love helping others." They talked about work and why she'd chosen this small town. They finished their drinks and strolled the harbor under a crimson sunset. Amelia asked about Luke's interests. Hawk described early morning swim training and adventure books. She listened, gathering seashells for Luke. In that peaceful moment, Hawk let down his guard. They laughed like old friends. When the sun dipped below the horizon, Amelia realized the hour and touched his arm. "Thank you for this afternoon." He nodded, warmth in his eyes. "Me too. Luke had fun." They parted at Luke's front gate. Amelia looked up at the second-floor window, where Hawk stood watching. He returned her smile with a rare gentle nod. In that moment, fate put the first flourish on their story, a warrior and a healer writing a warm love song together. The next morning, before dawn, Hawk awoke to find a small card on the breakfast table, addressed in delicate script, "Thank you, Amelia." Inside, a get-well note for Luke and a bright sunflower photo. Hawk smiled, feeling a new kind of joy. When Luke woke, he asked, "Papa, what's this card?" Hawk handed it over. "Dr. Hart sent it." Luke cheered, "Thanks, Dr. Hart." Then paused. Hawk gently said, "Let me keep it safe." He tucked the card into Luke's treasure drawer, where they kept their most precious mementos. At the hospital, Amelia arrived for her shift in unexpectedly high spirits. Colleagues teased her about having a secret admirer. She merely smiled, touched by the thought that she'd become part of someone's life beyond patient care. That evening, Hawk received word of a memorial service for fallen veterans at the city cemetery, where he'd been invited to speak. He planned to bring Luke in a little suit. Amelia, informed by the town office via email, decided to attend and support the Reynolds family. At dusk, the cemetery was hushed. Amber leaves drifted along the walk. Hawk, in dress uniform, and Luke stood before the crowd. Amelia arrived carrying sunflowers, finding a spot among the chairs. Luke whispered, "Put these on Mr. Jordan's grave," and Hawk nodded. When the speaker called out, Hawk stepped to the podium. "We gather to honor our fallen comrades. They are the flames that guided us and the sacred thread that binds us in hardship. I, Harrison Reynolds, vow on their legacy to protect peace for family and country." He removed his glasses, eyes catching on Amelia's attentive gaze. In that instant, duty and the stirrings of his heart converged, because she and Luke waited for him. After the ceremony, Hawk draped his coat around Luke and turned to find Amelia still watching. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I wanted to share this moment with you," she replied. "This is more than remembrance, it's a testament to love and sacrifice." He smiled. "Shall we have dinner?" She hesitated, then nodded. They went to a small seaside diner. Luke animatedly recounted the ceremony. Hawk listened to his son, eyes brighter than usual. Amelia quietly observed them, then slid a plate of garlic butter crab toward Hawk. "You remembered," he teased. "You said you liked it," she replied with a smile. They talked of life, loss, hopes for a simple family. Laughter wove through their conversation as the tide murmured outside. Back home, Luke slept, and Hawk carried him upstairs. In the living room's soft lamplight, Amelia waited. "Thank you for tonight," Hawk said, voice sincere. She replied, eyes shining, "And thank you for giving me a corner of peace." He leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, an unspoken promise of protection and care. She smiled, drawing him into an embrace. In the swirl of life's storms, they'd found calm in each other's arms. Before dawn, Hawk departed for the naval training base nearby. He'd been tasked to escort a medical supply convoy through pirate-ridden seas, an area rife with maritime terror cells. His body bore the marks of countless battles, yet his resolve remained unbroken. Meanwhile, Amelia, refreshed by last night's warmth, returned to her grueling ER shifts, noting in her planner, Friday, Edgewood Seafood Festival. She intended to invite Hawk and Luke. At the base, Hawk met Captain Mason, an old comrade. Mason handed him a USB containing safe route coordinates. Hawk's gaze lingered on the long scar down his forearm, the souvenir of a hostage rescue in a frozen Karakoram gorge 3 years ago. Only he and Mason truly knew its story. As he checked his gear, Hawk's phone buzzed, a text from Amelia, "Is Luke okay? We'll call tonight." He typed back, "He's fine. Looking forward to seeing you." That night the convoy cut through black water under gunmetal skies. Hawk took the first watch in the engine room, every creak of metal set his pulse racing. He thought of Luke's newfound love of swimming, his fearless spirit, and of Amelia's calm, guiding presence like a beacon in darkness. On deck, Hawk spotted a swift launching craft 2 miles off, lights flickering. "Incoming," he warned. His team readied weapons as tracer rounds erupted overhead. Hawk manned the machine gun, blasting through the night, extinguishing the pirate assault. Shells glowed and died like fleeting stars. By dawn the convoy reached safe harbor. Hawk, sweaty and tense, wiped his brow. The scar on his arm throbbed, but he smiled, just part of a soldier's duty. Back at St. Mary's, word reached Amelia that Luke had taken a day off to visit the port. She rushed out at shift's end, driving through muddy streets in the aftermath of last night's storm. At the docks, Luke perched on a bench clutching his adventure book, eyes scanning the horizon. Amelia called, "Luke." And he turned with a shy grin. "Dr. Hart. You came?" he said. "I heard about last night," she said, raising binoculars toward the ship. "He'll be back soon." Luke let out a relieved breath. "I missed him." Amelia placed a hand on his shoulder. "Soon, he'll be here." Moments later, Hawk strode ashore in uniform. He spotted Luke and Amelia, his heart swelled. He scooped his son into his arms. "You did great, son," he said, kissing Luke's forehead. Amelia stood by, wind whipping her hair. Hawk turned to her, "Thank you for coming." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied. Between them was a bond forged in sea spray and night watch, yet Hawk's hidden scars still guarded an untold tale. On a sunlit weekend, Hawk organized a small picnic at Willow Creek National Park, Emerald Lawn, Crystal Lake. He packed garlic butter baguettes, apple juice, and Luke's favorite adventure novel. Amelia brought her medical kit and a soft jazz playlist for ambience. Arriving at the waterside meadow, Luke leapt from the car. "Papa, can we launch the boat model?" Hawk laughed and lifted him close. "Let's build it together." Side by side, Hawk and Amelia assembled the little wooden boat. When it floated, Luke cheered as Amelia watched through binoculars. Hawk sat beside her, and they talked of his plan to retire from undercover work so he could be a full-time father, staying on as a civilian security advisor instead. She looked surprised. "Really?" He nodded. "Luke comes first." Her eyes glistened. "You always put him first." They fell silent, watching Luke paddle the boat. Amelia's simple beauty, no fuss, just luminous, touched Hawk deeply. At noon they unpacked their picnic. Amelia handed him apple juice, "For you." He sipped, closing his eyes. "Sweet as you are." She blushed. "And the soldier is a dash of spice," she teased. Luke burst into giggles. They spent the afternoon playing badminton, tug-of-war, reading stories under an old oak. Hawk realized his heart was wide open, thanking fate for leading him to Amelia, the one who warmed his soul. By sunset, they sat on a wooden bench by the lake, the sky ablaze. Amelia leaned on Hawk's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her and kissed her soft hair. Luke dozed in his lap, content. "Thank you for today," Amelia whispered. Hawk answered, "Thank you for being here." And in the hush of the park, waves of devotion carried them into the next chapter of their shared life. A week later, Edgewood was battered by a tropical storm and relentless rain. Flood warnings spread across town, streets flooded and homes were cut off. St. Mary's activated its disaster protocol, and Amelia volunteered to coordinate patient evacuations. Hawk received urgent orders. A maritime terror cell was exploiting the deluge to smuggle weapons near Edgewood Harbor. He and his task force were deployed to secure the port and protect civilians. In the hospital's basement, Amelia oversaw generators and led nurses in moving patients upstairs. She called Hawk over a crackling line, "Where are you?" "The roads are impassable." "We're deploying from base," he replied. "Keep the hospital safe. If you need backup, I'll get there." She admired his resolve but worried the flooding had turned the port into a quagmire. By night, armed smugglers attempted to seize relief supplies to distract the authorities. Back at St. Mary's, an electrical short threatened life support machines. Amelia dashed into the flooded basement, wading through ankle-deep water to rescue a nurse who'd collapsed near live wires. She pried her to dry ground, donned insulating gloves, and tended to the victim even as sparks flew. Meanwhile, Hawk's team approached the old dock by skiff, rifles at the ready. Gunfire echoed through wind and rain. Hawk led the assault on the makeshift arms cache, disarming 2 gunmen in close quarters. By dawn, the cartel was dismantled. He received a call, "Hospitals under threat." Without hesitation, he ordered his team to secure the grounds, then piloted a small rescue boat through the storm surge. At the ER entrance, Hawk found Amelia guiding patients to safety. They locked eyes amid the chaos. He grabbed both her hands. "Are you safe?" she panted. "But there are more. We'll help," he said. Together they formed a human shield. He patrolled the perimeter while she treated the injured. Though rain pounded them, their shared duty shone like a lantern in the tempest. By morning the floodwaters receded. Edgewood began its recovery, and the hospital resumed normal operation. Luke, safe with a friend's family, stared out his window and asked his foster mother, "Is Papa and Dr. Hart back yet?" "She is," Amelia said gently. In that moment, Hawk and Amelia were no longer just lovers, they were comrades in arms and healing, ready to face whatever lay ahead with love and purpose. Weeks after the storm, life in Edgewood settled. Luke eagerly began an advanced swim class under Hawk's instruction at the base pool. Amelia, immersed in a flu season crisis, worked long ER shifts by day and night. One Friday evening, Hawk invited Amelia to the pool so she could teach basic water rescue techniques to him and Luke. He texted, "Can you join us tonight?" But Luke had already fallen asleep. Thinking she was too overwhelmed, Amelia replied apologetically, "I'll have to pass, let's plan another time." Hawk sent a curt, unsentimented reply in his mind, then deleted the draft. That night Hawk sat alone in the living room, staring at the willow branch painting from Willow Creek, feeling the ache of her absence. Luke awakened and asked, "Mama Hart couldn't come swim?" Hawk forced a smile. "She's busy, son." Luke frowned and patted away. Amelia, exhausted on shift, sipped cold coffee and saw Hawk's unanswered message. Deep down she knew she'd let work overshadow her growing family. She resolved to make amends. At the base the next day, Hawk learned of an urgent threat, a weapons cell planning an attack on the provincial hall. He was called to lead a rapid response team, just 24 hours before the scheduled swim lesson with Amelia. Luke watched his father suit up. "You go," he whispered. "I'll practice on my own." Hawk hugged him. "Be brave. I'll come back soon." Late that night, Hawk and his team stormed the hall, neutralized the plotters, and secured the building with no casualties. Exhausted, Hawk raced back home to find someone waiting by the pool, not Amelia, but a visiting medic she'd sent in her stead. "I thought you'd be here," he said, heart sinking. "She's tied up at the clinic," the medic explained. "She wanted me to help." Hawk's spirit sank. He coached Luke through drills, but his eyes kept drifting to the empty stands, yearning for Amelia. That evening Hawk texted sharply, "You promised to join us." Why send someone else? Amelia's reply came next shift, I'm sorry. The flu surge demanded all hands. I know I disappointed you. He shot back, I don't want excuses. Let us be. Then he locked his phone and spent the night in silence. Amelia wept at her station, realizing how she'd hurt the man who'd become her world. She vowed to take time off to reconcile. That afternoon Hawk awoke to Luke stirring. Papa, I miss Dr. Hart. He held back tears. Do you want to apologize? Luke nodded. Hawk inhaled, opened a new message, please come by tonight. We need to talk. Amelia read it between patients and immediately asked off-duty. I'll come, she texted. That evening she stood at the Reynolds door. They faced each other in the warm glow of the entrance hall. Hawk closed the gap. I was angry because I care, he confessed, voice quivering. Amelia's eyes shone. And I love you enough not to choose between work and family. I'm sorry. But I was afraid to lose my purpose. Hawk placed his hand over hers. You don't have to choose. Let me share the load. You, Luke, and we're a family. She melted into his arms, and all misunderstanding washed away in that embrace. Late autumn, Edgewood buzzed with the annual seafood festival. Lanterns gleamed over vendors' stalls, the scent of grilled shrimp and scallops thick in the air. Hawk heard Amelia would be the festival's head medic at the pop-up clinic. He decided to bring Luke along to volunteer. Early morning, Hawk dressed Luke in a tiny life vest and hat, then arrived at the medical tent. Amelia was already there, the first face he saw. Are you safe? Luke beamed, I want to help too. Amelia turned to Hawk, who nodded. We'll teach him first aid. The boy eagerly learned to wrap bandages on a practice mannequin as Hawk watched, pride shining in his eyes. Suddenly a cry rang out, a small tour boat had capsized in a sudden current. Spectators panicked. Hawk dashed into the water, dove twice, and rescued an elderly woman and 2 children. The crowd watched in awe. Amelia rushed to shore with her kit and treated the frightened passengers, calming tears, dressing scrapes. Hawk returned, drenched, hugging Luke and Amelia. Everyone's okay, he said. Festival-goers applauded. Later, the organizers invited Hawk and Amelia on stage. As cheers rose, Hawk took her hand. This isn't just a soldier's duty, it's a family's. He drew her into an embrace, and the crowd went wild. That night, around the bonfire, Luke sang with friends while Hawk and Amelia watched by the flames. Hawk whispered, "This festival will stay in my heart forever." "So will mine," she replied. Beneath the star-spangled sky, they shared a sweet kiss, another affirmation that they were a united family, ready to weather any storm. Winter blanketed Edgewood in white. One frosty morning, Luke spiked a high fever after the flu. Hawk carried him in a blanket to St. Mary's. Amelia, on duty, immediately diagnosed a mild pneumonia and admitted him. In the pediatric ward she monitored his temperature, bandaged his fore, and soothed him with gentle words. Luke, weak but trusting, clung to Hawk's hand. Amelia's calm confidence reassured them both. That night the ventilator alarm blared. Amelia sprinted to Luke's bedside, adjusted settings, and stabilized him within minutes. Hawk watched, awestruck. "Thank you." "Nothing," she panted. "Your son matters to me." Hawk realized in that moment how deeply she cared. He grasped her hand, gratitude and love flooding his chest. By morning Luke woke with clearer eyes. He smiled, "Papa, I feel better." Hawk kissed his forehead, "I was so worried." Amelia guided Luke through breathing exercises and whispered, "I'll bring you a teddy bear if you get discharged early." His eyes lit up. "Really?" She nodded. When Luke was well enough to leave, Hawk led Amelia to a surprise, A cozy beach cottage he'd secretly rented, warm lights inside and a plush teddy on the bed. Luke squealed and hugged it. Amelia gasped, "You did all this?" "For you both," Hawk said. He gathered them into a family embrace, hearts brimming with hope. Spring returned to Edgewood in a riot of blossoms. Hawk formally retired from undercover work, signing on as the town's security advisor. He filed the adoption papers and invited Amelia to become his legal wife. Their sunset wedding took place on the beach, witnessed by family, comrades, and townsfolk. Luke, in a dapper little suit, presented the rings to Papa and Mama. Applause rolled over the sand. Amelia, radiant in a white gown, walked toward her soldier-turned father, tears of happiness in her eyes. Hawk's voice trembled through his vows, "I promise to love and protect you and Luke for all my days. I promise to stand by you through joy and hardship," Amelia replied. They shared their first married kiss as Luke cheered, sunshine in his smile. A cozy reception in the beachfront cottage followed. A folk band played Our Family. Hawk danced a gentle waltz with Amelia while Luke joined in beside them. Hearts beat in unison under strings of lanterns. Life began anew. Morning saw Amelia heading to her clinic, Hawk to his security office, and Luke bounding off to school. Evenings brought family dinners and shared stories. Weekends were for seaside strolls, camping, and riding their next great adventure together. Years passed, Hawk's scars faded though memories of their journey remained vivid. Love, duty, and sacrifice had forged him into the devoted father and husband he'd become. One golden dusk, the family sat on their balcony, watching the sun dip below the waves. Amelia leaned into Hawk's shoulder as Luke slept peacefully in his arms. Hawk whispered, "Family is my home." Amelia replied, "And I will always be there." Before them on the table sat a small wedding cake topped with a flag and anchor, symbols of steadfastness and safety. Waves lapped the shore in a lullaby for their three souls bound forever by love.